Booster.
Go.
Retro.
Go.
Vital.
We're go flying.
Guidance.
Guidance, go.
Launch control, this is Houston. We are go for launch.
I feel the need for speed.
You gotta ask yourself a question. Do I feel lucky? Well, do you, punk?
Join us or die.
And welcome to Mark Groupie Outdoors, the podcast. I am your host, Mark Groupie, and as usual, we have Ryer the Millennial behind the magic keyboard. Say hello, Ryer.
Hello.
You're supposed to say hello, Ryer.
I'm sorry that I'm not a dad yet, Mark.
No dad jokes yet?
Maybe when I have 9 kids, I'll start doing the dad jokes.
All
but
right,
for now,
okay.
I already have enough people accuse me of being a dad with the belt clip for the phone, with the tucked-in jeans. Sometimes I have to wear glasses.
The way you drive 55 miles an hour in a 65 mile an hour zone.
All right, the Danger Ranger can't go that fast, Mark. I'll blow it up. Then I'll really have to ride my bike everywhere.
Well, we wouldn't want you to have to pedal everywhere for your living. So, thank you all very much for tuning in and listening. As usual, you can find us at markgroupieoutdoors.com. You can find us at thecommunityshow.tv. You can find us at The Community Show on Instagram. You can find us. Oh, where else? Our Facebook.
Got it.
Almost
Does
got
he
it.
have it?
Mark Groupie Outdoors
Will he get it?
Facebook page. You can find us
There it is, folks.
the Community Show Facebook page.
Mark this momentous occasion. Mark not only did the social media plug by himself without prompting, he did it correctly.
On the first take.
On the first take. Well, there was a couple.
There's a couple
stumblings in
hiccups,
there,
but pretty good. For me, it's an A+.
A.
For me, it's an A+.
Okay, well, that's not how the grading system works, Mark.
All right.
Well, maybe it does these days.
I want a participation trophy.
You don't get.
I want a social media participation trophy.
You certainly participate in social media, Mark. The quality of that participation is what is yet to be determined.
All right. Well, I think I'm too. What's that line of Butch Cassidy and Sundance Kid? He said, "I'm getting too old for this. I'm getting too old for this shit," and they jump off the cliff or something like that. I think that's just me in social media. I'm just too old for it. Anyways, today we have kind of part 2 of our National Wild Turkey Federation podcast. Hopefully you enjoyed our elk hunt that we released a week or so ago, and that was a great trip we had there. And we should be in the midst of editing our New York hunting trip, but today in studio we have Kevin. Now you don't even have your last name. Where in the hell's your card?
I didn't bring you a card.
So it's just Kevin.
Kevin Vella.
Kevin Vella.
There we go. Italian.
Okay. I went out with a girl named Lori Vella.
Probably related.
And she was at Delta, so she'd be my age.
Interesting. We'll have to talk about that.
Okay. Say hi to Lori for me. I did about as well with her as most women. I wasn't very successful there, but kind of like most of my turkey hunts.
Well, maybe if we didn't leave for coffee by 8:30 in the morning.
Turkeys are either going to come to my decoys or they're not. And if they're not going to show up by 7:30 or 8 o'clock, it's pretty much head to the coffee shop. Either I've got one dead or I'm drinking coffee by 8:30 on my turkey hunt. So
sounds like it might be more coffee than at that point.
Yeah, it's I guess.
Well, except for Mark doesn't drink coffee.
Except for I don't drink coffee. Now I drink tea.
Herbal teas.
Herbal teas.
So whenever he accuses me of being the millennial, I just want you guys to remember I'm the one drinking coffee, and Mark is drinking chai latte teas.
I do not drink chai latte. That's not even
like
herbal
it to me.
tea, dipshit. That's not even herbal tea.
Have you had your pumpkin spice tea of the season yet?
That's not herbal tea either, dumbass.
Somebody's getting triggered.
Hashtag triggered. Anyway, Kevin Vella with us. He is a biologist for the National Wild Turkey Federation. Kevin, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Mark. Yeah, I'm the biologist for California and Nevada for the NWTF, and very excited to be on. So thank you for having me.
Yeah. So anywhere from San Diego to Wairika, from Santa Cruz to Wendover.
That's right.
You are you're the man.
I'm the turkey guy.
And every area I just mentioned there, is there turkeys in all those areas? Well, maybe not Wendover.
Not Wendover.
I don't think
not too far out of Wendover though.
Yeah, probably Elko and
Elko County,
that range.
Elko County has a decent amount of birds there in the northern end of the Rubies, Lamoille Canyon, which just got burned over by that Range 2 fire.
Okay.
We actually do have a habitat project in the works with some cottonwood regeneration there in Lamoille Canyon coming up this spring. So, yeah, there's a pretty good population of birds there.
Before we get too far into the biology talk, Kevin, how did you get into this line of work?
So I actually grew up northern end of the Napa Valley. My dad was a vineyard manager there for Chateau Montelena Winery. Grew up on the property, hunting, fishing. Wanted to get out of farming, spending 8 to 10 hours a day on a tractor during every summer when your friends are out having fun. So decided I didn't want to make money and went and got a wildlife management degree from Humboldt State, which was a great time up there. Then ended up getting a job with California Waterfowl Association and became a biologist for them out of their Bay Delta area, mostly Sassoon Marsh, doing wetland enhancement projects. Great gig, great organization. Did that for a couple years and then jumped ship and came over to the NWTF in 2014. So I've been a little over 4.5 years here with the NWTF and really enjoyed it. It was a big learning curve at first, going from wetlands to uplands, but it was a challenge I took on, and I've really been enjoying it since. So great organization.
That's cool. How many are you? The only biologist here? Is there two of you, 10 of you, just you?
So the way we're structured, we kind of have in the West, it's one biologist for several states. So I have California and Nevada. My counterpart up north of us has Oregon, Washington, Idaho. Another counterpart has Arizona, New Mexico. So it's one biologist kind of for a district is what we call it.
Okay. So let's start out with some basics thing. What in California here? What subspecies of turkeys are we mostly encountering?
We've had most subspecies planted here. Actually, mostly we have Rios. That's the dominant subspecies. There was Merriams that were transplanted along a lot of the Sierras that have come down and hybridized with a lot of the Rios now. They actually put Easterns in a couple different spots in San Diego County and then all the way up north in Humboldt County.
Really?
Yeah, which is interesting. But those birds have all pretty well hybridized again with Rio Grande. So that bird has really taken to kind of this climate, and so everything's kind of hybridized with it. There's some true flocks of Merriams up in kind of Modoc County up there. Devil's Garden has a flock. The Warners have a flock up there. So there's a few still true Merriam's flocks in the state that people can go and hunt.
But mostly it's a Rio hybrid that we're seeing.
Yep, everything's pretty well mudded up with a lot of Rio genes in it.
Mm-hmm. We have a couple, and maybe you can give us the definitive answer for this. On our flocks at Mariposa, some that they're not albino, but a lot of white frosting almost on their feather. And maybe we can even post a picture of it. And you've got a picture of it, that one with the hand. What do you call that? I've heard it smoky gray phase. I've heard what is the proper name?
Yeah, there's a couple different. A lot of the layman terms are like smoke phase turkeys, but the more scientific term is leucistic, and it's a pigment malfunction essentially, so it doesn't generate those darker colors. It's like a lack of pigment in those feathers, so it becomes more white.
Okay.
It's not a true albino, which has no pigment in it. So leucistic is the term.
Okay. Cool. I wanted to know that.
How the heck do you spell that?
Leucistic.
One more time.
Leucistic.
I wouldn't have guessed that.
Yeah, similar to a lot of the, like the I'm not gonna say leukemia. That's a downer saying.
Yeah,
that.
just understand that.
I shouldn't even said it.
Man, we're all in such a good mood at this podcast.
And now you had to drop kids cancer on us.
Yeah, great. Started off well.
Yeah. Do they have all the same character? They're just the same. They're the same thing, but just with that gene or without that color gene. They're still able to breed, everything like that.
Yep.
Okay. So what obviously they're down here in the flat ground in the valley, but up to what altitudes in the Sierras here? Say if we head east and we go up into the Sierras, how high are turkeys getting here?
It depends. It's pretty seasonal. Obviously, it's similar to like the deer herd and everything. It's food limiting. But in the summertime, you'll have birds up at 6,000-7,000 feet.
Really?
That I've anecdotally have talked to people who've seen them up there and stuff. Even in the eastern Sierra side, we've got birds that persist there throughout the entire winter. So it ranges pretty high.
And they do migrate some?
Yeah, they're nomadic, I mean, they'll spend summer ranges kind of up in those higher elevations, and then once snow comes and food availability drops up there,
they just start picking their way down.
Exactly.
Down
They'll start
mountain,
coming down and sitting at that 3,000, 4,000 foot mark.
Okay.
Below the snow line.
All right. And the National Wild Turkey Federation, they focus all their energy is on these public grounds where they're at. What do you guys do for them? What is the biology that you try to affect for them?
Yeah, so it's a great question. So we are currently in our Save the Habitat, Save the Hunt initiative, which is a 10-year national initiative with 3 goals. The first goal is to conserve or enhance over 4 million acres of upland wildlife habitat. The second goal is to create 1.5 million hunters, and the third goal is to open up 500,000 acres to public hunting access. So obviously the biologist role in that is a lot of habitat management. So we do a lot of work with the Forest Service. That's our biggest partner nationally. And we've had a program with them called the Making Tracks program, which is essentially it's an agreement between the organization and the agency since 1986. So we do a lot of work with the Forest Service. The majority of projects that we do with them are thinning projects. So as you know, looking at the catastrophic wildfires we've been having here in the state, you can't put fire back on the landscape that used to naturally be there without having these giant explosions. So we're trying to get the environment back into a more natural state so you can put fire back onto the ground, because it's a very vital tool for habitat management. So we do a lot of work doing thinning projects. We're full-blown commercial timber sales down to hand thinning and all the small diameter wood. We do some prescribed fire projects where we enter into agreements with where we help to fund a lot of that. So you talk to Jeremiah, and a lot of those chapters and banquets, they raise funds that we put onto the ground to help fund a lot of that. We also do guzzler projects. San Diego County, we put a guzzler in July last year and plan to put another one in on the Cleveland National Forest. Those areas where it's, just water limiting, there's good habitat there with the exception of water, so it can create range expansion for those birds. And then also up on Knoxville wildlife area in Napa County, we put 2 in this last year on a upland game bird grant. So all your upland game bird stamps that you buy that you have to use,
right?
We that all goes into a dedicated fund at California Department of Fish and Wildlife. Then they open that up for grants that then benefit upland game birds, upland game bird hunters. So we've been pretty successful in drawing out of that pool to do awesome projects for turkeys and for quail and that sort of thing.
Okay.
What is a guzzler?
Guzzler. So good question. So I take that for granted a lot of times. It's a wildlife drinker. So one of the ones that we put down in San Diego County, it's a 500-gallon HDPE, so high-density polyethylene tank that collects water. That one we piped into a spring, so it's constantly feeding it. But a lot of the ones we have looks like that corrugated metal roofing, and that collects rainwater during high water events, and then it goes down into that tank and stores it year-round, so that during the fall and late summer, you have water there when you normally wouldn't. So it really helps wildlife.
And so I guess the animals it's a wet time of year, and the turkeys will be branching out, and then normally they'd have to, as things dry up, they'd have to get all sucked down and concentrated back down into their limited water area. But you've got water now up to where they had expanded during the wet time, and there's no reason now for them to leave. They can just stay in that good habitat.
Exactly. So there's requirements. The requirements for animals to survive are food, water, cover. With wild turkeys, it's food, water, cover, and roosting sites, I should say. So yeah, so when in times when they would normally be congregated around limited water sources, if we can expand those water sources, it expands those populations and helps bring them sometimes from areas where they might concentrate on small private lands that have, sprinklers going or something like that in the summertime and late summertime and fall, can help bring them out into areas of public lands that would normally be water limiting.
Mm-hmm. Do you guys do anything with the private landowner? So we have a ranch up in the foothills. Is there any way a private landowner can benefit from the NWTF?
So we do majority of our work in the West on public lands, because typically it's a lot of fundraising dollars that we're putting on the ground. So it's membership benefits, We do some work with private lands with NRCS, so Natural Resource Conservation Service. We've contracted out with them before to help do wildlife management plans and that sort of thing. So that's kind of where we go in with private landowners, is through that kind of realm.
Okay. What is I'm kind of jumping around here because as you're talking about these things, I think about all kinds of different stuff. But
that's why it's a podcast, right?
Yeah, I guess so. We can just sit here and ramble on about this stuff. The biggest limiting factor on turkeys. Some places there's a jillion of them, and in the next place it might look real similar, but it may have nothing. What makes great turkey habitat? What makes okay turkey habitat? What are the things that start really shutting it down, the turkey population down?
So that's a great question. And I'm not going to know for sure the answer on that, but I can give you some of my hypotheses. And with being California and Nevada in my district, I can tell you in Nevada and in the Great Basin, the number one limiting factor on wild turkey populations is availability of winter food sources. So you get in the Great Basin and you get a hard winter, it's tough on a bird like a wild turkey. So a lot of the times those birds focus in on areas of pinyon pine, and you get a good pinyon pine crop, they'll be able to scratch through that snow surface, and they'll have that year round. Areas or years like this year where we're not looking like a very good pine crop in those pinions, it gets a little scary on what's going to happen to those birds throughout this winter. But in California,
do you actually lose whole populations of birds?
Not since I've been on, so I couldn't tell you. We haven't had a real rough winter since I've been on, with a bad winter and a small production year on pinyon pine seed. So it hasn't happened yet. I know it has in the past, where we will lose some populations on a really bad winter and they can't go further down, and they can't scratch through that snow surface. So it will be like a winter kill, like deer and that sort of thing. But majority of the time, they're pretty hardy birds, especially if you get Merriam's in there, and they can survive pretty well. But on the California side of things, it could be something just as small as like we talked about offline, is it's grazing. You have areas that grazing can be a fantastic tool for habitat management, where you can have areas that are grazed next to areas that are ungrazed, and you've got cover, and then you've got food in the grazed section. Or it could be predation. Could be high densities of wild pigs that are really getting after some nests in the springtime, or it could be a lion or something comes in and moves in just for a little while and really hits some of those populations pretty hard.
Mm-hmm. What's the biggest predator of an adult turkey?
I like how you said adult there, because poults, it's avian predation.
Okay.
For adult turkeys, it's probably going to be coyotes, and bobcats. But when you have suitable habitat, you have very little predation on adult wild turkeys. They are survivors. So once they get to that adult phase, they can survive really well, especially if they have good nesting cover, good ground cover. The number one time that adults die is hens on the nest when they're incubating in the springtime, because they don't have that ability to go up into the tree and roost at night. So they're more vulnerable sitting on the ground.
Yeah. Yeah, and just their motherly instincts just going to tell them to sit there and hold on to the last minute. So
yeah, we had a great photo from Arizona Game and Fish on some Gould's wild turkey populations in the Sky Islands. Jim Heffelfinger's a biologist for them, and he had a picture on a trail cam of this hen sitting on a nest, and it had, I can't tell you how many different predators walked right by her. Black bears, coyotes walked right by her. And then there's a picture of this gray fox, and she's still sitting on the nest, and he's digging underneath her to try and get to the eggs, and she's not moving off that nest. And he eventually got a couple eggs out of it, but she was able to keep most of her eggs in there and actually hatched that group of poults. It's pretty incredible.
Do you have an idea? I mean, we see, 10 or 20 or whatever, 30 different hens at different times running around the ranch. And come June, when there should be baby turkeys everywhere, there is not hardly any baby turkeys. Then all of a sudden, it seems like in the fall, all of a sudden things start appearing. You go, oh, those must have hatched and made it from somewhere. What is the what percentages of turkeys will bring a nest? Will bring a clutch to pull to pheasant or bigger size.
Yeah, so pretty much most adult hens, even first year hens, will nest that first year. They'll lay a clutch somewhere in between 10 and 12 eggs. But I would say about 75% of those nests get predated. Especially first year hens, because they don't know exactly where to put their nests and suitable nesting cover and that sort of thing. And then out of those 25% that remain, about 75% of them will not make it to adulthood. So that's kind of the general on average look at survival. But a lot of these hens, these adult hens, after the first year, they'll re-nest if they get predated. They won't do a second clutch like quail do, where they'll actually have multiple clutches in a spring season. But if their nest actually gets predated, they will nest again and try to get it to the point where they can hatch poults.
Okay, that was one of my questions. They will re-nest.
They will re-nest, but not if they had successful.
Not if they hatched.
Correct.
So just if the nest got destroyed.
Exactly.
So what you're saying is probably about what I'd say anecdotally, just experiencing, 75% of the nests get predated, and then 75% of those that did get hatched, and as I say, it looks like about somewhere between 5 and 10% of the population ends up having hens end up bringing some to adulthood.
Yeah.
So, and it's avian predators mostly for the young ones, huh?
Exactly, and that's why
they just get zinged by those Cooper hawks.
Oh yeah,
and
I mean, everything wants to eat a baby turkey.
Yeah.
So it's crucial to have that tall grass, that brooding cover. throughout the summer months, which is when it's most critical for those poults. So if they can get in there, I mean, there's nothing that's going to be able to really get after them too bad, especially from the air.
Right. Then the bobcats will hammer them in when they get to the tall grass.
It's possible. It's possible.
Yeah, I was when Ryer and I were up trying to video a quail hunt, and I told you this offline. No, we had I shot a quail and had a Cooper's hawk swoop down out of the tree right above me. He was watching me quail hunt. Swoop down out of the tree right in front of me, 15 yards away. Snatched that bird up. He never even touched the ground. Just hit it. Few good pumps of the wings, and he was airborne and off into the trees he went with my quail.
Like he'd done it before.
But
He was waiting.
he was just sitting there waiting. We had been shooting around there, and I guess because he had knew those quail were around there, he didn't want to leave that spot either. But I didn't even look up and to see him in the tree, but he was there the whole time, watching us hunt, and we were shooting right underneath him, and he never flew away until a bird hit the ground.
That's cool.
That's how I've heard grizzly bears or Kodiak bears in Kodiak Island. They hear gunshots and they hear it as a dinner bell. Someone shot a deer and they head that way, I guess.
I'd much rather deal with a Cooper's hawk.
Yeah, I'd rather deal with a Cooper's hawk than what are the hawks that are the biggest? Anything? I mean, I guess heck, even a kestrel would go try to pick off a baby turkey, huh?
Yeah, I'm sure. I mean, I know Cooper's hawks will. I know red tails, peregrines will. I don't know about a kestrel, but I'm sure when they're fresh and in that first class range that they could definitely pick them
Yeah,
off.
little sharp-shinned hawks, everything.
Yeah,
huh?
exactly.
And but you mentioned wild pigs. Wild pigs are definitely a factor on the nest, huh?
Yeah, so there's some research that's come out in the past and some current stuff that's going on in Texas right now to kind of determine how much of a factor wild pigs are and how wild pig densities can make a big effect on ground nesting birds and success in that realm. So, I mean, like we talked about, anything wants to eat a turkey poult, anything wants to eat a turkey egg. I mean, look at those things. They're big.
That's a meal right there,
exactly.
huh?
That's a big omelet. So anything that finds or comes across a turkey egg is going to want to take it, especially wild pigs. So when you get areas of high density pigs and they're out around rooting in the grass and they come across a nest, I'll absolutely take it out. Exactly.
The turkeys there, where do they typically like to put their nests?
So they like about 1 meter of cover, and a lot of times that could be at the base of an oak tree. It could be in a brush pile. It could be in blackberry bushes, or it can even just be out there in tall grass in the middle of a field. Kind of along the Sac Valley, there's a lot of birds that nest out in kind of these open fields of tall ryegrass, and have pretty good success out there. So it's kind of all around the board. It depends on their area, but that's when you see. A lot of the times you'll see a turkey in an area you've never seen one before. It's a hen out searching for a suitable nest site, kind of in that May-June time frame.
Right.
And they'll go up to 20 miles looking for a suitable nesting site. They are very adamant about finding the right place.
Okay, so if you just see a hen wandering around by herself at that time of year, that might be exactly what she's doing, is just cruising, trying to find the right spot, huh?
Yep, she's either doing that or she's off probably trying to go lay an egg, slip into her nest, lay an egg, slip back out until she's got a full clutch. So when she goes to incubate.
So she'll still roost in a tree while she's building her nest.
Yep.
And she'll lay her 10 or 12 eggs. Then will she start sitting on those right away?
Yep.
And what's the incubation period?
It's around 30 days.
Okay.
So yeah, she won't start incubating until she has her full clutch, so that they all hatch at the same time. So once incubation begins, then the fertilization starts to really occur and they start to grow. And then at that point, around 30 days into it's when you start to hatch.
Okay. If you get a cold snap, would it get cold enough in California at that time of year to possibly to kill those eggs?
If it gets mostly rain is the biggest factor, rain and snow. So there's something called wet hen syndrome. So when they're on the nest, and a lot of the times when they're incubating, they're not getting up for a full day and a half sometimes. It's pretty impressive. So when they get rained on real bad, they have to go out and forage more because they're losing calories.
Losing energy, yeah.
So you get a hen that continually gets hammered while she's incubating with rain and snow, she's going to continue to get off those eggs, and she might not have some that hatch. So it does happen.
So those eggs may cool off too much, and
or she may have to abandon. Yeah.
Or she may have to abandon them. Huh. How much do you know how much temperature they can lose before, or how long? I mean, if it's a normal spring day and she wanted to get up, how long could she stay off her eggs and they still stay viable?
So I don't know for sure on the temperature and stuff like that, but I would imagine, I mean, typically when a hen gets off the nest, she gets off for a couple hours to go around and forage, because it's the only time she's getting off that day or 2 days to go out and gain calories. So I'd imagine a couple hours would be fine on a normal spring day, especially here in California.
You mentioned rain. Talk about humidity. In quail, I've noticed that if we've had some spring rain, it seems like I always start seeing baby quail around Memorial Day. It seems to be about the time when they start coming. Of course, some are always a little earlier, but about at that time. So it seems like if we've had some rain, light rain, not torrential downpours, but rain, a little bit of rain in May, adding to the humidity. It's kind of anecdotal here, but it seems like I've seen better hatches. Is that a possibility? I know, because I know in an incubator, if you do not have water in that incubator, those eggs are brittle and they're hard. The babies can't peck and get through. What about humidity?
Yeah, so same exact thing. Mesic soils or wet soils are very good for wild turkeys, for forage, for nesting. So if you get a good winter in terms of precipitation and a good spring, as long as they're not getting hammered with precipitation while they're on the nest, you're going to have good nest success, but you're also going to have really good survival, what's called recruitment of birds into the adult population, because then you're going to have tall grass. So it's going to be good brooding cover, so they'll have really good survival throughout that summertime into adulthood. So that's when we have our best years of recruitment for wild turkeys, is when we have good precipitation in the spring, and then it kind of tapers off, and then birds go to nest and incubate, and once they have poults that hatch, they have a really high likelihood of surviving.
What do baby turkeys, or I guess even adult turkeys, when they're hatched, what are they going after to eat?
Yeah, so they need that high calorie, high protein intake when they're poults, because just like ducks, they're growing really fast, so they need that. So a lot of invertebrates. Grasshoppers are a big thing. So what we do a lot of work with kind of in the valley with California Department of Fish, Wildlife lands and some federal lands along the Sac River to do native grassland restorations, because when you have a big, healthy grassland, not only do you have good brooding cover, but you have really good hatches of insects, really good hatches of grasshoppers, which are really good forage. They also go after forbs, annual forbs, so flowering plants. That's kind of a big springtime and summertime food for adult turkeys is flowering plants. I mean, they'll pick the petals right off. It's pretty impressive. And then just, a lot of seeds. So we do a lot of stuff with ryegrass and meadow barley, and that creates an awesome seed bank for birds to go along in the springtime and summertime and forage on.
That's interesting. What's the turkey population in California? Is there, and do you have any numbers from 10 years ago, 20 years ago to today? What do you have there? So
I do not know how many birds we have in California. The Department of Fish and Wildlife hasn't done a census on turkeys since their management plan was completed in 2004. And around that time, it was around 230,000 birds in the state of California. Nevada's a little less. I know we're around 1,500 to 200 birds in the state of Nevada. So to draw a turkey tag, it takes like 5 or 6 points.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. But in California, I think anecdotally, since that management plan has occurred, we've gotten more birds in newer areas. Their population's expanded. They're starting to infiltrate from the foothills down into the valley. Even the San Joaquin Valley and everything coming down, a lot of these river corridors and creeks, just fall in that riparian zone all the way out into some ag stuff. So I would say our turkey population is doing really well. Obviously, you see a lot of attention that goes towards cities that have issues and nuisance issues with wild turkeys. But I'd say in areas where turkeys are huntable and where they're in their natural habitat, we've continued to expand.
Mm-hmm.
I was looking up numbers. I was going to see if I could find some numbers, and I just found an article here by CBS Sacramento entitled "Wild Turkeys Are Invading Bay Area Cities."
Yeah, I've got a lot of friends that are sending me pictures. I don't know why you have trouble killing a turkey. Why don't you come to my house? And,
That's probably the number one thing I get when people ask me what I do, and I say I'm a wildlife biologist for a nonprofit called the National Wild Turkey Federation. They go, "What? Those things? I got those things in my backyard. Come get rid of them."
Yeah.
So unfortunately, yeah, the nuisance issue puts them in a bad light for sure.
Now, if you wanted to. No, you're not a game warden, but since you follow this stuff, maybe you know some of this. You can't feed, like, if you wanted to supplement turkeys or attract them, right? You can't, obviously, you can't shoot turkeys over bait, but can you even feed them? Like, if you wanted to have a wildlife feeder for them, can you do that?
No, you cannot feed wildlife technically. Same thing with deer and stuff like that. You can't feed them; it'll habituate them to, and it not only habituates them to humans, but it also, I mean, if you're doing it out like your back door, it habituates to humans, but it also congregates them in unnatural densities, and you could have potential for disease transmission and that sort of thing that could occur.
Gotcha. It's best just to let them be.
That's best just to let them be.
So I guess technically it's illegal to have a bird feeder in California, isn't it? Because you are not allowed to feed wildlife.
You can have, see, that's where you get into the specifics. You can have a bird feeder, but you can't feed turkeys. So it's an interesting thing. And again, I'm not a game warden.
Yeah, I guess if the sparrows are eating out of the bird feeder, it's fine. But if any feed spills out of that feeder and falls on the ground and a turkey eats it, it's illegal.
Yeah, you're not supposed to do it.
So before we move away from talking about habitat or anything like this, I wanted to maybe bring it to a more practical standpoint as far as if somebody's looking for ground to hunt turkeys on, what kind of things should they be looking for and scouting for besides obviously looking for turkeys?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So my favorite places to hunt, so it depends on if you've got some private land, if you're looking for some public ground. Onyx Maps is the best freaking tool I've ever used for turkey hunting. It's the best $30 you can spend on turkeys in California, because that highlights all these little small public land parcels that are kind of in these like lower elevations of the foothills and stuff like that. But my biggest thing is just go out and look for turkey sign. First thing you should do. Focus on areas typically in the springtime for hunting spring turkeys below that 4,000 foot mark. Looking for areas where there's some openings in the canopy. If it's oak savanna or it's a clear cut that's been done by a timber company. A lot of those things are good because it puts sunlight on that forest floor and creates that forage for them. So I'd look in those spots and look for turkey scat, look for feathers, look for tracks, that sort of thing. Once you get into an area where you start seeing that, then you got to scout it. And then you got to scout it real hard. And I would scout it in the dark, in the morning, listening to birds, seeing if you can hear birds on the roost. Because once you do that and you hear where birds are roosted at, you've got a really good chance of having some success, or at least having an interaction with turkeys.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned low as an altitude, finding those lower public land spots. If you had to put of course, maybe it's not even a good question. I was going to say, what is the ideal altitude range for them? I guess that just totally depends. But
yeah,
I mean,
I would say it's really dependent. I mean, if you're, because I mean, there's birds at 5 feet elevation, along the Sac River and all the way along the coast, to birds that, like I said, are ranging. Even in the wintertime, they'll range up higher depending on the snow line to close to 5,000 feet. So, I mean, typically what I like to look for is if you're hunting Forest Service land, the lowest that Forest Service land goes to elevationally.
Okay.
That's where you get your highest densities of birds.
Alrighty.
But yeah. The one thing I did want to touch on too, to talking about turkey hunting, is some of our partnerships with California Department of Fish and Wildlife. I talked to you a little bit earlier about that Upland Game Bird Stamp Fund.
Mm-hmm.
So in 2014, Tim Hermanson, he's the manager for Upper Butte Basin Wildlife Area, which is up there near Chico. It's got Little Dry Creek and Howard Slough and Llano Seco units. Him and Laura Cockrell, who is the biologist for that wildlife area, came to me with a request. So they had there's a ton of turkeys on the wildlife area, but they didn't have funding in the springtime to run a spring hunt program. They had opened it up to fall hunting, and it was a very popular fall hunt just during waterfowl season. But they didn't have the funding to run a check station person to incorporate a spring hunt. So they came to me, seeing how the NWTF could help. And in 2014, we wrote a grant to that Upland Game Bird account and established funding to run a check station person out there, and we got a hunt going.
Oh, wow.
Which is awesome. And it's you have to get drawn for it, but it is a very high quality hunt. Not only that, but we also started a banding program to make sure we could started a banding program to try and get an abundance estimate on the birds on the wildlife area, to make sure that throughout our spring hunt program and fall hunt program, we weren't over harvesting birds. And so in the past 4 years, to give you an idea, we've banded close to 100 birds out there. And throughout that time frame, we've had one get harvested by a hunter. So there is a ton of birds out there, and it is awesome. I got.
So did you ban 50-50? I mean, hens.
It's pretty close to 50-50 because, like I said, they've got the fall hunt that occurs out there, so they can shoot beardless turkeys.
How do you trap them?
So we have a air cannon. It's similar to a rocket net, but it's compressed air. And it's got these little weights. We call them rockets, but they're not true rockets. Little weights that go into these cylinders, and it shoots it out. But you congregate birds for about a month on bait sites.
You bait them.
We bait them.
You bait them.
We have a scientific collecting permit to do that.
We seem to have a conflict of interest here. No.
So we bait them in. They congregate. We watch them for a while, make sure they're hitting it. And when we get a good batch of birds, shoot the net. We'll run out there, put birds in these cardboard boxes that are supplied by the National Wild Turkey Federation. Store them in there. They're calm in there. It's dark. They don't beat themselves up in there. And then one by one, we process each one. We'll take their weight measurement. We'll take a primary wing feather measurement. We'll do beard length, spur length, whether it's a adult or a hatch-year bird. And take all that information, slap a band on them, and at the end we release them all at the same time so they go back out as a flock. And it's been, yes, we've done it for 4 years. We had one season where we were flooded out the entire time and couldn't capture birds. And yeah, we've only had one return. And my buddy got drawn for Little Dry Creek this last year for opening weekend. Well, actually, it's opening Sunday because it's day by day now. And invited me out, and that was a really cool experience, man. I got to go out on a hunt that I helped to create with the state, and we both killed birds, and sitting there in the morning, listening to birds gobble on the roost, hundreds of gobblers. I've got a cell phone video of it, and it is mind blowing. It's a world class turkey hunting. It's pretty cool.
Wow. Any idea how many birds? How many birds are there?
Not yet.
You tagged 100, but
it's a lot. That's all I can say.
Huh.
It's a ton of birds.
How many do they let? How many do they let give permits to shoot?
So it's been increasing every year based off of those numbers. So how it works is, one weekend we will hunt Howard Slough. The next weekend we'll hunt Little Dry Creek. So each property gets full 2 weeks rest. We were doing it where the successful applicant would get the entire weekend to hunt, and it was about 5 parties of 2, give or take a few. Mm-hmm. And so they'd have the entire weekend to hunt. Well, no one was showing up second day. They'd just shoot one day, and it's like, well, heck, we might as well get more hunter opportunity out there. So then it got changed to you get drawn for one day, so you could apply for Saturday or Sunday. And so it pretty much doubled the amount of hunters we put out there, and we've still seen really high success. So it's a great hunt, and now I'll never get drawn for it because I'm telling people about it. But it's pretty freaking awesome, man.
Cool.
Also looking at actually a partnership with SAC and Delavan Refuges right now at possibly doing that for this spring. I think we're going to look at some spring turkey hunts, which have never happened before on those two refuges this spring. It's going to be apprentice hunts. So it's just kind of in the works right now. But the NWTF will be helping with that as well.
And are you going to try to do some banding deals if you can, expand your deals to those places too, or is that just a factor of time and money and everything like that?
Yeah, I don't foresee this. We may extend that over to there, but I think we'll just keep that on Upper Butte Basin for now. Just knowing that there's a ton of birds in that area, and we're going to continue to increase hunter opportunity. And just expand hunter opportunity where we can.
Okay. Got any more wise questions for this learned guest we have, Ryer?
Well, I'm just looking over an email that we had with some stuff that we wanted to make sure we went over. We talked about kind of habitat and conservation.
Yeah.
I know earlier you mentioned creating hunters.
Yeah.
And we kind of just barely started touching on that right now. Is there anything you'd like to add to that?
Yeah. So, in California, we've helped to create a couple thousand hunters since the initiation of our Save the Habitat, Save the Hunt initiative. So a lot of that goes through our outreach programs. It goes through hunter education courses that are taught by our volunteers that are members of the NWTF. But we also work a lot with the state. Right now, the state's going through a big process called R3, which is hunter recruitment, retention, reactivation. So hunters and anglers are the number one source of revenue for California Department of Fish and Wildlife and all state agencies nationwide.
Do animal rights groups recognize that?
I think they have to recognize it, whether they want to listen to it or not is a different story.
Right. Okay. I'm sorry.
Yeah, so I mean, hunters and anglers are the number one funders of conservation. The California Department of Fish and Wildlife has just hired on recently an R3 coordinator for the state. Her name is Jen Benedette. She's doing a great job so far. And what they're trying to do is devise a strategic plan, a statewide strategic plan to create more hunters and anglers in this state. So the NWTF has been really involved with that ever since the initiation of that process about 6 months ago. And we just actually yesterday went through and had a stakeholder meeting with a bunch of other NGOs. You know, Backcountry Hunters and Anglers is there, California Deer Association, Ducks Unlimited, CWA, all there to revise or to review this draft action plan. So I think there's going to be a lot moving forward with California Department of Fish and Wildlife and helping to create more hunters and doing it in a different way than we've always looked at. It's always been youth. But there's a ton of people out there that are in that millennial demographic that are looking for wild, organic meat they can locally harvest. And that's something that we need to jump onto.
And you got to get them successful.
Yeah.
You know, because going out and beating your head against a tree, not knowing if you're within 100 miles of a turkey or a pig or something like that can be really frustrating for a person who's not used to doing that.
Yeah, it is a steep learning curve.
Yeah, it is. And I know just from elk or deer or whatever, you know, especially elk, you go out and a brand new unit somewhere. All right, here you don't know if you're in 1 mile, 2 miles, 5 miles, 10 miles of the nearest elk. You know, just, you know, it's just like, oh, we'll try here for a bit, and you know, and if you're a brand new hunter and not used to that learning curve, it could be very frustrating.
Absolutely, and that's a big part of it too. Is a big part of this plan is increasing mentorship. How did you do that? What does that look like? Do you incentivize people to be mentors? I mean, you could go too far with that. Then people could just be trying to get personal gain and take advantage of it. So it's hard trying to go through that realm of, you know, we need people with mentors out there to show them the ropes, because going out there and just trying to do it on your own, it's extremely intimidating. There's a ton of different barriers that we've created, not only through legislation and laws. You can even, buy ammunition online now. And a lot of these new hunters are starting to realize, oh man, this is difficult to get a firearm. And that's one of the scariest parts for new hunters is even just purchasing a firearm.
Yeah.
I can definitely speak to that because prior to working with Mark, I had not hunted. I had also not done any video stuff, but I'd always kind of wanted to. It was always in the back of my head, but I didn't know anybody who hunted. And so it was kind of one of those things where I just thought, oh, I'll probably never do it unless maybe my uncle from Pennsylvania decides that he's going to take me one day. That was my only recourse. And then, being able to hunt with Mark for, what has it been?
3 years.
3 years,
Yeah.
I've been able to learn the ropes, and I'm finally feeling comfortable enough to go, okay, I'd like to take the jump into this and do it myself. But if I wouldn't have had the opportunity to go hunt with Mark, I'd be in the same boat as a lot of people. Just there's so much stuff that you don't even know that you need to know.
Yeah.
And you know that you don't know what you need to know. And without somebody saying, hey, you need this, and this is how you prepare, and this is how we, just little stuff, even walking around in the field and how to walk in the field, or what not to move, and playing all those different things.
Yeah.
You don't even know that you need to know them, and you kind of have to have somebody there saying those things to you in the moment to learn. So, like you said, mentorship is huge. Exactly.
And then looking into regulations, man, the complexity of that,
Yeah.
what legal method it take. I mean, what shot size to use. Most turkey hunters that I talk to in California don't even realize that you can't use something larger than a number 2 shot because it's just, buried in these very complex regulations. So there's a lot of barriers that we need to really look seriously at lifting if we want to increase hunting participation in California.
Yeah, there is. I mean, everything from, besides shooting, the camping aspects, like fishing, fish and wildlife has, there's Forest Service ground, there's BLM ground, but there's fish and wildlife ground also. But some places you can camp, some places you can't camp. And unless you've read the regulations on all these different things, it's really easy to make a mistake.
Absolutely.
And I've done it too.
Oh yeah.
It's easy to make a mistake.
Yeah.
If you're out there long enough, it's pretty soon you will make a mistake.
Oh, you
something.
Will. And we all have.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's true, and it's been an interesting process of trying to go through this strategically of how do we get rid of some of those barriers. And that's something that we're doing nationwide as an organization. We have now a national R3 coordinator that works just for us. We've partnered with several state agencies to have R3 coordinators that work in their headquarters. That is their entire job, is looking at human dimensions data and helping to create events to increase hunting and fishing participation and license sales in the states. So it's a big passion, not only for me, but for the organization and what we're trying to do.
I'm gonna put you in the uncomfortable spotlight here. You got to work with fish and game and stuff like that. If you could say in one sentence a game warden's role? What is a game warden's role?
To protect the resources of the state of California.
Okay. Then, what if a warden was watching you dove hunt?
Yes.
And he was watching you in binoculars over a safflower field, and you shot 10 birds, and he saw you shoot 10. They watch you with binoculars and spotting scopes. They're well aware of what you've got and what you've picked up. They may even be sitting 20 yards from you, and you don't even know it. But they would let you shoot 11 birds. They would let you shoot 12. They would let you shoot 100 birds, and they would wait for you to start packing up before they would come in and get you. They were not looking out for the extra 90 birds that got shot or 85 birds that got shot when they decided to finally give you that ticket. Just as they would watch you, and I saw them do it on their warden show or the California Wildlife Justice or whatever it was, but they watched these fishermen go out and catch their limit of fish. They went back to their hotel, and they let them go out and catch another limit of fish and then catch them. If they were interested in protecting those numbers, when they caught those 5 fish or 10 fish or whatever limit was they were fishing, wherever they were fishing, whatever they were fishing for, they would have gone down and said, all right, let's see your licenses, check, looks like you had a good day. Now if the idiots went back and got caught, but and not saying obviously what the people did were wrong, but there was a limit of fish that got caught and killed that didn't need to get caught and killed. And as a warden, same thing. As a warden, sit there and watch people shoot 2 birds, 5 birds, 10 birds, 20 birds over their limit before they finally give them a ticket. It appears to me that it's more about the size and the wow factor of the ticket that they wrote, rather than going, I think that guy's got 10 birds. Let's go down, check his license. We haven't interfered with his hunt now. We can go down, check his license, and send him on his way.
So, first way to start with that, I'm going to say that game wardens are individuals. Like anything, you're going to have some that are better than others, some that are more lenient than others. But I think the reason that they do that is because of the size of the hammer that comes down on the person that's breaking the law. If they have someone that is going to go out there and break the law, but before they do that, they go, you might not want to do that. And then they go, oh, okay. So then next time they look around, the game warden's not there, they go out and do it, they're more likely to do it again if they get away with it. Whereas if they do it one time and they let them go over the line more and more, and that hammer comes down harder, they're going to be less likely, as of higher of a fine, to go out and do it again. So in the long run, they may be protecting more resources. That's kind of my take on that type of perspective. Okay.
That's a reasonable answer. I'm sure your warden friends are very happy that you gave that answer. No, that was dirty. Let's see. Anything else, Ryer, that we haven't touched on here? We've covered a lot of material here.
I think we covered the access part.
Yeah, we can go back into uncomfortability and talk about government affairs.
Yeah, that's the last topic here. It's government affairs.
Okay. Yeah, so the National Wild Turkey Federation, their mission statement is the conservation of the wild turkey and the preservation of our hunting heritage. So along with that goes the protecting our privileges of hunting throughout the nation. So each state has a policy lead. Typically, here in the West, in California and Nevada, I am the policy lead. So that means that we wear a lot of different hats as biologists. We do habitat work. We do partnerships with the state. We do R3 stuff. We do government affairs. So I didn't know, as being a biologist, I was going to be in a suit and tie testifying in front of your California state legislature in support or opposition of bills.
All right.
But talking about some of the benefits a turkey hunter has, like what you asked, Jeremiah, what does the turkey hunter have to benefit from by being a member of the NWTF? We help to protect your hunting rights here in the state, whether it's in the Fish and Game Commission, helping to be in support of increased hunter opportunity where it's available, where you have wildlife populations that can allow that, or if it's in the California state legislature when they're trying to take away firearms and ammunition rights from its citizens of the state of California. So this last year we weighed in on a few different bills. One was AB 2697, which is a habitat incentive bill. So essentially it incentivizes farmers in the state of California that have fallowed lands to keep those lands fallow, and to have, essentially it's a CRP program that's run statewide. So it's trying to incentivize farmers to have taller grass on their fallowed lands for wildlife cover. If Prop 3 passes here coming up, that will dedicate a lot of funding to this program to help.
Is that the water?
It's the water bond, exactly. So it's Prop 3. If that does pass in this next round, that'll help to fund this program, and it's going to incentivize people to leave fallowed lands and to essentially make these lands better for wildlife habitat. The biggest reason for it is for pheasant populations in the Central Valley, which have just been tanking.
Oh man.
Yeah, so it's been real rough to watch that. So California Waterfowl Pheasants Forever put this together, and it was something that we really supported, and it did pass. So we're really happy about that. Another one we did support was the I can't remember the bill number now that it's gone through, but it was the apprentice big game tags bill, and essentially it reduced the fees. I mean, if a youth drew an elk tag in the state of California, that's $450 that they got to pay. There's no reduction for a youth. There's very few tags that they can get, but essentially it made it so that elk, antelope, and bear tags all have a youth tag price now of about $20.
Oh, good.
Yeah,
I just that hunt that I went and filmed with Weston Clark just this past, was that last weekend?
Mm-hmm.
We went and hunted with one of the individuals who was instrumental in getting that in the works.
nice.
So,
Yeah, CRPA was a big push behind that. Roy Griffith was really.
it was Roy
behind that.
Griffith.
Yeah,
That was the guy we went and hunted with.
yeah. Roy's a good guy, but don't tell him I said that. No, yeah, it's a good bill, and it's pretty similar to a bill that was put in last year, but didn't work out. So another way that we help is within the Fish and Game Commission. We put in. We have a lot of input on regulations and that sort of thing. So something we're looking at this next year is
Do you guys have a hired lobbyist?
you're looking at them.
Oh, okay.
No, we also, some of our state funds, we help to use Bill Gaines Associates to help represent us when we're not available to do so. But a lot of the time I am there representing the NWTF. And so we're looking at this next year on possibly working with the Department of Fish and Wildlife and the Commission to extend springtime shooting hours back from 5 p.m. is when end shooting time hours are now, back to sunset. And it's been a little bit of a controversial topic, but we've seen really good success in different states, and a lot of states have done that now and seen no negative effect to wild turkey populations. A lot of people have the argument of, then people are going to shoot them out of the roost at sunset. You can do that at shoot time in the morning. Birds usually are not coming out. So if you're going to have bad morals and ethics,
Yeah, you can walk up.
You can do it in the morning.
Right, once you've roosted them, you can walk up to that tree and go 3, 2,
exactly.
1.
So yeah, so that's something that we use as an argument against that.
So you would like to see that time extended?
We would.
Just because you would like to see more opportunities, I'm
We would
guessing?
like to increase hunter opportunity for wild turkeys in California when populations are doing well. And so, the struggle of having kids and activities that you have to do during the weekends, whether it's soccer games
Sure.
or baseball games in the springtime.
Maybe you don't get out until...
Exactly. You don't have anything till afternoon, and then, if you got an hour or two to drive to your spot, you get out there 2, start hunting at 3, by 5 p.m., you don't have that much time to hunt. If you can extend that into sunset, you've got a couple more hours there, and that might make it worthwhile to get more people out into the field.
It
get more
was
people
4 o'clock,
experience.
wasn't it? They bumped it from 4 to 5.
Correct. Bumped it from 4 to 5. We haven't seen any negative effects with that, so we want to continue to push it back to sunset. Most other western states are sunset.
Okay.
So just a lot of the stuff like that. That's where the NWTF is helping the California turkey hunter. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's really terrific. Well, we plan on donating another hunter's episode for a youth this year. So
We appreciate it. That
Well,
kid had a blast
I-
last year.
we just gave. I don't know. Do you know? Did they raffle it or auction it? Do you know how they handed it out last year, Ryer?
Who?
We did a it was like a lottery. It was a free
It was a lottery.
You sign up online and your name goes in the hat online, and it was free at the time. I think all you had to do was be an NWTF member.
Yeah, I think we coordinated that with TJ, didn't we?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think wasn't that. Oh, TJ's gonna be. He's gonna hit us up now because I'm gonna mention the Drunk Hunter podcast, and we know he loves that one because he has been the one and only guest.
One and only guest of the
And
Drunk
we're
Hunter
getting
Boy.
thumbs up. What? Well, I got a little sidetracked. ADHD does that to a guy sometimes. But yeah, we had him up and did the Drunk Hunter podcast, and then he proposed that to us, right? That evening.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
then he was really instrumental in
So he got you
coordinating all
drunk and
that.
got you to donate a hunt.
Yeah, he got us drunk and
See,
took
that's how
advantage
you-
of us.
That's a good
He's a
NWTF
good male,
volunteer right
good
there.
male right
Yeah.
there.
Yeah. We need more of them.
Maybe you could plan that into the official
Yeah.
policies
Hash,
of the NWTF.
hashtag me too.
Oh boy, now you're really diving off.
All right. Well, I think we covered lots of ground there,
Yeah.
and we really appreciate your time coming in. And gosh, I think I could start thinking about things, talk about turkeys for another hour too. But we'll shave her off here. So but give us some contact information when people want to know and find out.
Yeah, so NWTFCalifornia.com. That's our California state-specific website. I've got every habitat project we've done in the last several years on there, and details and pictures. We've got a lot of our events on there. It's a great place to kind of come and see what we do here in the state. We also have a Facebook page, NWTF-California, or at NWTF California on Instagram.
Okay. See, he said the at right part better than I do, Ryer.
Wait, say it again. Say it again for us.
At NWTF California.
All right, Mark, your turn.
At NWTF.
Nope. That was terrible. That was horrific. I'm sorry that you guys had to hear that. Kevin, one more time with yours.
I go at NWTF.
It's too much.
That's not right.
It's too much.
So I don't.
It hurts my ears.
It doesn't roll off my tongue right. You can find us at.
You got to do it like smooth jazz.
Right.
You can find us at The Community Show on Instagram.
Nailed it.
Well,
that about winds it up for us. Ryer, why don't you tell us one more time where you can find us real quick? Come on.
all right. Well, you can find us on Facebook, Mark Groupie Outdoors. You can find us on Instagram at The Community Show. We're also on YouTube, The Community Show. We have two websites, markgroupieoutdoors.com, which has the podcast and a lot of other information, as well as thecommunityshow.tv, which contains all of our past, future, and present episodes of The Community Show.
And remember, that's .tv.
.tv. I said that, didn't I?
You did.
Just reminding Mark was trying to get me flustered. He was over there rushing me, snapping.
Stop. You did well under pressure, Grasshopper.
And real quick, I just wanted to say thank you guys very much for.
Hey, it's our pleasure. We thank you.
You
took an hour and a half or so to get here, so we really appreciate your time. And
I
got
to go get packed up for Colorado.
There you go, third season deer.
That's right.
All
Big
right.
buck
Well,
country.
good luck to your hunt.
Thank you very much.
And thank you all very much for listening, and we appreciate your time. There's 8 jillion podcasts out there for you to listen to, and the fact that you take time out there to listen to ours, we greatly appreciate it, and hope that we will meet with you, the community, in the outdoors somewhere, and hopefully we can get a chance to hunt with you or fish with you or do something with you. We have a deal this weekend. We have the Tuolumne River Trust. They're bringing some kids out and going fishing in the pond by our house, and some of the guys came out with that yesterday and cleared some of the algae and weeds out of the way, so the fishing was better. So we're trying all the time to be in concert with some of these great agencies like the National Wild Turkey Federation to provide opportunities out there for people that don't have it, because people don't have those opportunities. They don't have that success. They are not going to be interested. So we hope that you guys can all see the value in that and do what you can in those same respects. So thank you very much for listening, and we will see you next time. Listen to you next time. Hear from you next time on Mark Groupie Outdoors, the podcast.